Maya Collins pressed her face against the observation window, watching the purple grass sway in the alien breeze below. The planet Kepler 442c stretched out beneath their research ship like a living canvas painted in colors that didn't exist on Earth. Strange blue flowers dotted the landscape, and in the distance, crystal formations caught the light of twin suns. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jake Morrison called from the pilot's seat. His hands moved smoothly over the controls as he guided their ship, the Aurora's Dawn, toward a landing site near what looked like a forest of silver trees. "More than beautiful," Maya replied, her dark eyes bright with excitement. "Those plants down there could hold secrets we've never imagined. Some of them might even help cure diseases back home." Lisa Brooks looked up from her engineering console, pushing a strand of red hair from her face. "Just promise me we're not collecting anything that glows, moves on its own, or makes weird noises. I've seen enough horror movies to know how this ends." Maya laughed. "Don't worry. We're just here to study and document. No samples that might eat us in our sleep." The Aurora's Dawn settled onto the purple grass with barely a whisper. Maya had spent 3 years planning this mission, and now they were finally here. As the ship's lead scientist, she felt responsible for her small crew. Jake had been flying research missions for over a decade, and Lisa could fix anything that broke. Together, they made a good team. They spent the morning setting up their equipment. Maya collected soil samples while Jake mapped the area with his scanner. Lisa stayed near the ship, monitoring their communications and keeping watch. The work was peaceful, almost relaxing after months of space travel. "Maya, you need to see this," Jake called from near the silver trees. She hurried over to find him standing before a plant unlike anything in their databases. It stood about 6 feet tall with leaves that seemed to shimmer between silver and gold. "It's responding to my presence," Jake said, pointing at the leaves. They were indeed moving toward him, though there was no wind. "Think it's safe to get closer?" Maya pulled out her scanner and ran a quick analysis. "No dangerous radiation or toxins detected, but let's be careful anyway." She approached the plant slowly, noting how its leaves tracked her movement like eyes following a person across a room. That's when the sky darkened. Lisa's voice crackled through their communicators, tight with fear. "Guys, we have a problem. Big ships just appeared in orbit. They're not responding to our signals." Maya and Jake looked up to see massive shapes blotting out the twin suns. The ships were unlike anything in human design, angular and aggressive with weapon ports that were clearly visible even from the ground. "Get back to the ship," Maya ordered. "Now." They ran through the purple grass, abandoning their equipment. The Aurora's Dawn seemed impossibly far away, and with each step the alien ships grew larger overhead. By the time they reached their vessel, landing craft were already descending from the massive ships above. "I can get us out of here," Jake said, his fingers flying over the launch controls. "Just need 30 seconds to warm up the engines." They didn't have 30 seconds. The alien landing craft touched down with mechanical precision, surrounding the Aurora's Dawn in a perfect circle. Tall figures emerged from the ships wearing dark armor that reflected the purple light of the alien grass. They moved with military discipline, weapons raised and ready. "This is Dr. Maya Collins of the human research vessel Aurora's Dawn," Maya spoke into her communicator, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are peaceful scientists conducting biological research. Please respond." The only answer was the sound of metal boots on grass as the aliens approached. Maya could see their faces now through transparent helmets, pale skin, sharp features, and eyes that held no warmth. These were not beings interested in peaceful contact. The lead alien spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Humans, we have heard stories of your kind. Weak creatures who claim to seek peace while your species spreads across the galaxy. We mean no harm," Maya said, stepping forward with her hands raised. "We're just scientists." The alien commander laughed, a harsh sound that made Maya's skin crawl. "I am War Commander Zeftak of the Velthak Empire. We do not recognize your claim to this world. You will come with us." "And if we refuse?" Jake asked, his hand moving slowly toward his sidearm. "Then you will die here in the grass and we will take your ship as a prize." Zeftak's weapon hummed to life, casting a red glow across his armor. Choose quickly. Maya looked at her crew. Lisa was pale but determined, while Jake's jaw was set in that stubborn way she knew meant he was ready to fight. But fighting would only get them killed. We'll come with you, Maya said. But I want your word that my crew will not be harmed. You are in no position to make demands, human, Zeftak replied. But your companions will live as long as you prove entertaining. The word sent a chill down Maya's spine. But she had no choice. Within minutes, they were aboard the alien transport, watching their ship grow smaller below them. The Velthak soldiers were silent during the journey, but Maya could feel their eyes studying her crew like specimens in a laboratory. The Velthak flagship was massive beyond imagination. Corridors stretched in all directions, filled with armed soldiers and the sound of mechanical systems. Everything was built for function, not comfort. There was no art, no decoration, nothing that spoke of culture beyond warfare. They were separated immediately. Jake and Lisa were dragged away to holding cells despite Maya's protests. She was taken to a different section of the ship, through corridors lined with viewing windows that showed space beyond. Other ships moved in formation around them, a fleet that could probably conquer a small planet. War Commander Zeftak was waiting for her in a large chamber with high ceilings and walls covered in what looked like battle honors. Trophy weapons from defeated enemies hung in display cases, and the floor was stained with marks that might have been blood. Your people interest us, Dr. Collins, Zeftak said, pacing around her like a predator circling prey. We have fought many species across the galaxy. Some are strong, some are clever, some are numerous, but humans claim to be peaceful explorers. This puzzles us. Because we are peaceful explorers, Maya replied. Not all species solve their problems with violence. Perhaps you are simply too weak to fight properly. Zeftak stopped in front of her, his pale eyes reflecting the red light from the walls. We have devised a test to determine the truth. You will face our champion in combat. I'm not a soldier, I'm a scientist. Then you will die quickly, and we will know that humans are indeed as weak as they appear. Zeftak smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. But if by some miracle you survive, perhaps there is more to your species than meets the eye. Guards moved forward to escort Maya away. As they walked through the corridors, she caught glimpses of other chambers through doorway windows. Some contained alien creatures in cages, others held weapons and armor. This was a ship built for war and conquest, and somehow she had become part of their twisted game. The last thing she saw before being locked in a small dark cell was a massive door marked with warning symbols in the Velthak language. Whatever lay behind that door, Maya had the feeling she would meet it soon enough. The arena was larger than Maya had expected. Stone walls rose 30 feet on all sides, with viewing platforms where Velthak soldiers sat in neat rows. Their pale faces showed excitement as they waited for the entertainment to begin. Maya stood in the center of the sandy floor, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. War Commander Zeftak stood on the highest platform, his voice echoing through the chamber. Witness the weakness of the human species, he announced to his troops. This creature claims her people are peaceful explorers, but we know the truth. All species are predators. Some are simply better at hiding their nature. Maya looked around the arena, noting the stains on the sand that could only be blood. How many beings had died here for the entertainment of these aliens? She thought of Jake and Lisa, hoping they were still alive somewhere in this ship. Release the Korthak, Zeftak commanded. A massive door groaned open on the far side of the arena. Maya heard something moving in the darkness beyond, something large. The sound of claws on stone echoed through the chamber, and the Velthak soldiers leaned forward in anticipation. The creature that emerged from the shadows was unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It stood 8 feet tall on 6 powerful legs, its body covered in dark scales that reflected the arena lights. Its head was elongated, with large eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. Most terrifying were its claws, each one as long as Maya's hand and sharp enough to cut through metal. The Velthak called it Hunter Prime, but Maya could see immediately that this was an intelligent being, not just an animal. The way it moved, the way its eyes took in every detail of the arena, the way it paused to study the watching crowd, this creature was thinking. The Korthak has never failed to kill its prey, Zeftak announced. Today will be no different. The creature took a step toward Maya, then another. She could hear its breathing, deep and steady, its glowing eyes fixed on her face, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Maya had spent her career studying alien life forms, learning to read their body language and behavior patterns. What she saw in this creature's eyes was not mindless hunger, but curiosity. "Hello?" she said quietly, keeping her voice calm and steady. "I know you can understand me. I can see it in your eyes." The Korthak stopped walking, its head tilted to one side, like a dog hearing a new sound. The arena fell silent as both creature and human studied each other. Maya took a small step forward, her hands visible and empty. "My name is Maya. I'm not here to hurt you. I don't think you want to hurt me either." The crowd began to murmur. This was not what they had expected to see. War Commander Zeftak leaned forward, his face showing confusion and growing anger. "Study living things," Maya continued, taking another careful step. "I try to understand how different species think and feel. You're not just a weapon, are you? You're a person trapped in this place just like I am." The Korthak made a sound deep in its throat, not quite a growl but not quite speech either. It moved closer to Maya, but its claws remained retracted. When it was just a few feet away, it lowered its massive head and looked directly into her eyes. Maya could see intelligence there, and something else. Sadness. This creature had been forced to kill for the entertainment of others, probably for years. She slowly raised her hand, palm open, and waited. The Korthak sniffed her hand, then gently touched it with the tip of one claw. The contact was careful, controlled, nothing like the savage attack the Velthak expected. "What is this?" Zeftak roared from his platform. "Why does the beast not attack?" Maya didn't look away from the Korthak's glowing eyes. "Because he knows. I'm not his enemy. He knows the real enemy is watching from those platforms." The crowd grew restless. Some soldiers called for action, others seemed confused by what they were seeing. Zeftak's face was dark with rage as he realized his carefully planned demonstration was failing. "Release the Scarlings," he commanded. "If the Korthak will not kill the human, let us see how she handles smaller prey." 3 smaller creatures were released from side chambers. They looked like wolves, but with too many teeth and skin that seemed to burn with inner fire. They raced across the arena sand, heading straight for Maya with obvious killing intent. The Korthak moved so fast that Maya barely saw it happen. One moment the Scarlings were charging toward her, the next they were lying still on the arena floor. The Korthak stood over their bodies, having placed itself between Maya and any threat. The arena erupted in chaos. Soldiers shouted at each other in the Velthak language, some demanding explanations, others calling for more creatures to be released. War Commander Zeftak stood silent on his platform, his hands gripping the railing so hard that Maya could see his knuckles from across the arena. "This is impossible," he finally said, his voice carrying over the noise of the crowd. "The Korthak is trained to kill all prey. It cannot choose to protect instead of destroy." Maya looked up at him, then at the creature standing guard over her. "Maybe that's because you never gave him a choice before. Maybe he's been waiting for someone who would treat him like a person instead of a weapon." The Korthak made that sound again, deeper this time, and Maya realized it might be trying to speak. She placed her hand on its arm, feeling the warmth of its scaled skin through her palm. "What's your real name?" she asked quietly. "Not the name they gave you, but your real name." The creature's mouth moved, and a sound came out that was part whistle, part growl. It was unlike anything in human language, but Maya could hear the meaning in it somehow. A name that spoke of seeing truth in dark places. "Ketmara," she repeated, probably getting the pronunciation wrong but trying her best. "It's beautiful." The Korthak, Ketmara, straightened up, and for the first time since entering the arena, it looked directly at the watching Velthak soldiers. There was no submission in its posture now, no acceptance of their authority. It stood like a free being making its own choices. War Commander Zeftak had seen enough. Guards, remove the human. Take her back to the holding cells. The beast as well. We will study this anomaly. As soldiers moved to surround them, Maya felt Ketmara tense beside her. She placed her hand on its arm again, shaking her head. Slightly. Not yet, she whispered. Let them think they're still in control. But stay close to me, friend. I think we're going to need each other. The soldiers led them from the arena, the crowd still arguing loudly about what they had witnessed. Maya walked between the guards with Ketmara padding silently beside her. For the first time since being captured, she felt a spark of hope. She had made an ally in this place of enemies. Now she just had to figure out how to use that alliance to save, not just herself, but Jake and Lisa as well. And maybe, if she was lucky, she could help Ketmara find freedom from the beings who had enslaved him. The corridor ahead was dark, but Maya was no longer walking into it alone. The holding cell was barely large enough for Maya to lie down, but somehow the Velthak had managed to fit Ketmara inside as well. The massive creature curled up in one corner, making himself as small as possible so Maya would have room to move. Even in captivity, he was looking out for her comfort. You don't have to do that, Maya said, settling down across from him. We can share the space. Ketmara's head lifted and those glowing eyes studied her face. He made a soft sound, then carefully stretched out so they could both rest more comfortably. His presence filled most of the cell, but Maya found it reassuring, rather than frightening. Hours passed in silence. Maya could hear activity in the corridors outside, guards walking back and forth, doors opening and closing, voices speaking in the harsh Velthak language. She wondered where Jake and Lisa were being held and whether they were safe. Tell me about your people, she said eventually, keeping her voice low so the guards wouldn't hear. Before the Velthak found you. Ketmara lifted his head and made a series of soft sounds. Maya couldn't understand the words, but she could hear the sadness in them. He gestured with one claw toward the walls, then made a sweeping motion that seemed to encompass the entire ship. They took you from your home, Maya said. It wasn't a question. The creature nodded, a very human gesture that surprised her. Then he began to make different sounds, his voice changing pitch and tone in ways that reminded Maya of singing. The melody was beautiful and haunting, unlike anything she had ever heard. That's your language, isn't it? Your real language, not the commands they taught you. Ketmara nodded again, then touched his throat and shook his head sadly. Maya understood. He had been forced to stop speaking his own language, probably punished every time he tried to use it. You can speak it with me, she said. They can't stop you now. For the next few hours, Ketmara sang to her in his native tongue. Maya couldn't understand the words, but she could feel the emotions behind them. Grief for his lost home, anger at his captors, and something else that might have been hope. She found herself humming along with the melodies, adding her own voice to his. When the songs ended, Maya began to tell him about Earth. She described blue skies and green forests, oceans that stretched to the horizon, and cities where different species worked together in peace. She told him about her pet dog Rex, who used to sleep at the foot of her bed, and how her grandmother taught her to talk to animals with patience and kindness. On my world, we believe that all thinking beings deserve freedom, she said. No one has the right to cage someone else and force them to fight. Ketmara listened to every word, his eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he reached out with one careful claw and touched her hand. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Jake and Lisa were having their own problems. Their cell was smaller than Maya's, with bare metal walls and a single dim light. Lisa was working on the lock mechanism with tools she had hidden in her boots before capture. These aliens are advanced, but they're not engineers, she muttered, carefully adjusting tiny components inside the lock. This security system has at least 3 major flaws I can exploit. Jake kept watch at the door. How long until you can get us out? Another hour, maybe 2. The question is, what do we do then? This ship is massive and we don't know where they're holding Maya. We find her, Jake said simply. Whatever it takes. Lisa paused in her work. Jake, did you see that creature in the arena footage? The one that was supposed to kill her? Yeah. Scared me half to death. It protected her instead. Why would it do that? Jake was quiet for a moment. You know Maya. She has this way with animals, always has. Remember that injured bird she found last year? Thing was half dead, but she nursed it back to health. 2 weeks later, it was following her around like a puppy. This isn't a bird, Jake. This is an 8-foot killing machine. Maybe. Or maybe it's just another prisoner who finally found someone who treated it with kindness. Back in Maya's cell, the conversation was taking a different turn. Ketmara had begun drawing symbols in the dust on the floor, using the tip of his smallest claw. The symbols were complex and beautiful, unlike any writing system Maya had seen. Is this your written language? She asked. Ketmara nodded, then pointed to one symbol and made a specific sound, then another symbol, another sound. He was teaching her to read. Maya was amazed at how quickly she began to understand. The Korthak language seemed to be based on concepts rather than individual words. One symbol might represent an entire idea: home, family, freedom, sorrow. As she learned more symbols, she began to piece together Ketmara's story. His people had been explorers, much like humans. They traveled between stars not to conquer, but to learn and discover. Their ships were grown, rather than built, living vessels that could adapt to any environment. They had been a peaceful species, trusting and open to contact with other life forms. That trust had been their downfall. When the Velthak found them, the Korthaks had welcomed them as potential friends. The invitation had been returned with weapons and chains. How many of your people are on this ship? Maya asked, pointing to symbols that might mean others and here. Ketmara held up both hands, fingers spread. 10, Maya realized. There were 9 other Korthaks imprisoned somewhere on this vessel. We have to help them, she said. All of them. Ketmara looked at her with what might have been surprise. He pointed to himself, then to her, then made a questioning gesture. Yes, we. You helped me in the arena. Now I want to help you and your people get free. The big creature was quiet for a long moment. Then he began drawing new symbols in the dust, symbols that looked like plans. Maps of the ship showing corridors and chambers marking where his people were held. He had been observing this place for years, learning its layout and routines. Maya studied the crude map, her mind racing. You know this ship better than anyone, don't you? Every passage, every weakness. Ketmara nodded, then drew more symbols. These ones showed the Veltak guard rotations, the times when certain areas would be less defended. You've been planning an escape, Maya realized. But you needed help from someone they wouldn't suspect. Another nod. Ketmara touched the symbol, for friend that he had taught her earlier, then pointed to her. Maya felt a surge of determination. The Velthak thought they were so superior, so much stronger than other species. They were about to learn that strength came in many forms, and sometimes the most powerful force was the bond between people who refused to give up on each other. When do we start? She asked. Ketmara smiled, showing those sharp teeth. But for the first time, Maya wasn't frightened by them. They were the smile of a friend, an ally, someone who had finally found hope after years of darkness. Outside their cell, the guards continued their patrols, unaware that the greatest threat to their ship wasn't some external enemy. It was sitting quietly in a holding cell, planning freedom for every prisoner aboard. War Commander Zeftak stood before the massive viewing screen in his command center, watching the stars drift past. His flagship carried the most feared warriors in the Velthak Empire, but the events in the arena had shaken his confidence. How could a weak human creature turn their most deadly predator into a protector? Sir. One of his officers approached carefully. The human female and the Korthak remain in containment. What are your orders? Zeftak's pale eyes reflected the starlight as he considered. Bring me the other humans. It is time to resolve this situation once and for all. Within minutes, Jake and Lisa were dragged into the command center. Their hands were bound, but their eyes burned with defiance. Jake looked around the room, noting The positions of guards and possible weapons. "Where is Dr. Collins?" he demanded. "Your leader is safe for now," Zeftak replied, "but her fate depends on what happens next. You see, we have a problem. Our Korthak champion refuses to kill her. This anomaly must be corrected." Lisa stepped forward, her red hair catching the light. "Maybe your monster finally realized who the real enemy is." Zeftak's expression darkened. "The Korthak is not capable of such thoughts. It is a weapon, nothing more. Your friend has somehow corrupted its programming." "Programming?" Jake's voice was full of disgust. "You're talking about a living being like it's a machine." "Because that is what it is," Zeftak snapped. "We took a race of savage predators and gave them purpose. They serve the Empire now, as all conquered species must. You enslaved them," Lisa said quietly. "Just like you're trying to enslave us." The war commander moved to a control panel and activated a communication system. Maya's voice crackled through, the speakers calling out to her friends. "Jake, Lisa, are you hurt?" "We're okay, Maya," Jake called back. "Don't worry about us." Zeftak smiled coldly. "How touching. Now, Dr. Collins, you will listen carefully. Your companions stand before me now, and my weapon is trained on them. You have a simple choice to make." Down in the holding cell, Maya felt Ketmara tense beside her. The creature's eyes began to glow brighter, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. "Either you convince the Korthak to complete its original task and kill you," Zeftak continued, "or I will execute your friends where they stand. You have 5 minutes to decide." The communication link went silent. Maya looked at Ketmara, seeing her own determination reflected in his alien features. "They think they're so clever," she said softly, "but they just made a very big mistake." Ketmara tilted his head, questioning. "They threatened my friends," Maya explained. "And friends protect each other. That's something they'll never understand." She moved to the cell door and began examining the lock mechanism. It was designed to keep in creatures much stronger than humans, but Maya had spent years studying mechanical systems. More importantly, Ketmara had been watching the guards for years, learning their routines and weaknesses. The creature moved beside her, using one careful claw to point out a small access panel hidden in the wall. When Maya opened it, she found exactly what she needed, a manual override that the Valthak probably forgot existed. "How long until the guard change?" she whispered. Ketmara held up 3 claws. 3 minutes. Maya worked quickly, her fingers moving over the control circuits. The lock was complex but not impossible. With 30 seconds to spare, she heard the telltale click of disengagement. They waited until the corridor outside was quiet, then carefully opened the cell door. The hallway was empty except for the soft hum of ship systems. Ketmara moved like a shadow despite his size, his clawed feet making no sound on the metal floor. Their first stop was the other holding areas. Using the map Ketmara had drawn, they moved through the ship's lower levels, avoiding the main corridors where guards might patrol. Each Korthak they freed joined their small army, until 10 massive creatures padded silently through the darkened passages. Maya was amazed at how quietly they could move when they chose to. These were not mindless beasts, but intelligent beings who had been forced to hide their true nature for years. Now, with freedom finally within reach, they moved with purpose and deadly precision. The ship's armory was their next target. Ketmara knew exactly where the Valthak kept their weapons, having been forced to train with them. But when they arrived, Maya realized they wouldn't need the alien guns and energy blades. "You are the weapons," she told her Korthak allies. "You always were. They just tried to make you forget how to use your strength for yourselves." The creatures exchanged glances, then Ketmara spoke in their musical language. The others responded, with sounds that might have been agreement or perhaps war cries. Maya couldn't tell the difference, but she understood the meaning. They moved through the ship like a force of nature. Guards who tried to stop them found themselves facing opponents who knew every weakness in Valthak armor and training. The Korthaks had been forced to fight in the arena for years, but now they fought for freedom. Maya coordinated their advance using her knowledge of military tactics and Ketmara's understanding of the ship's layout. They moved in small groups, cutting off communication systems and isolating guard units before they could call for help. In the command center, alarms began to sound as reports flooded in from across the ship. "Sir, we've lost contact with Level 7, an officer reported, his voice shaking. "And Level 6, another added. "Something is moving through the ship, but our sensors can't track it." Zeftak's face went pale as understanding dawned. "The Korthax, they've escaped." Jake and Lisa exchanged quick glances. If Maya and her new allies were free, then there was still hope. "Told you your monsters would figure out who the real enemy was," Lisa said with satisfaction. The war commander activated his personal communicator. "All units, the prisoners have escaped. Use maximum force to stop them." But his orders came too late. Maya and the Korthax had already reached the upper levels of the ship. They moved through the corridors like shadows, appearing where least expected and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. When they finally reached the command center, Zeftak had barricaded himself inside with his remaining officers and the human prisoners, but Korthak claws could cut through metal doors as easily as paper. Maya stepped through the smoking remains of the entrance, flanked by Ketmara and his people. The freed creatures filled the command center, their eyes glowing in the dim emergency lighting. "Dr. Collins," Zeftak said, trying to keep his voice steady, "you have made a grave error. This ship carries the most advanced weapons in the Velthak fleet. Even if you control it, you cannot hope to escape our territory." Maya walked to the center of the room, Jake and Lisa moving to stand beside her. "Who said anything about escaping? We're not running away, War Commander. We're taking your ship." Ketmara stepped forward and spoke in the Velthak language, his words clear and precise. Maya didn't understand what he said, but she could see the effect it had on the remaining aliens. Several of them dropped their weapons. "What did he say?" she asked. "He told them that the age of slavery is over," Zeftak replied, his voice barely a whisper. "He said that any Velthak who wishes to learn a new way of living will be spared, but those who insist on keeping others in chains will face the consequences." Maya nodded. "Sounds fair to me." "What's your choice, War Commander?" The proud alien looked around at his defeated forces, then at the circle of freed Korthax surrounding him. For the first time in his life, Zeftak was the one without power, the one forced to choose between submission and death. The revolution had succeeded beyond Maya's wildest dreams, but this was only the beginning. The Velthak flagship drifted through space under new management. In the command center that had once served as War Commander Zeftak's seat of power, Maya Collins stood before the main viewing screen, watching stars wheel slowly past. Beside her, Ketmara operated the ship's controls with surprising gentleness for someone with such large claws. 3 days had passed since the rebellion, and the ship was a very different place. The holding cells had been converted into temporary living quarters for the freed Korthax, while the former prisoners worked alongside their human allies to understand the vessel's systems. "The biotechnology is incredible," Lisa said, looking up from a control panel that seemed to be part plant, part machine. "These ships aren't just built, they're grown. The Korthax developed this centuries ago, before the Velthak conquered them." Jake nodded from his position at the navigation station. No wonder the Velthak wanted to control them. This technology could revolutionize space travel. Maya turned from the viewing screen to look at their former captor. Zeftak sat in a corner of the command center, no longer in armor but wearing simple clothes provided by his captors. He had chosen to cooperate rather than face the consequences of continued resistance, but his pale eyes still held confusion and anger. "I still don't understand," he said, addressing Maya directly. "Your species is weak. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no advanced combat abilities. How did you accomplish what warriors have failed to do for centuries?" Maya walked over to him, noting how the nearby Korthax tensed protectively. Even now they watched over her safety. "That's your problem right there," she replied. "You think strength only comes from weapons and armor and the ability to hurt others. But the strongest force in the universe is the bonds between people who care about each other." "Impossible," Zeftak muttered. "Bonds can be broken. Trust can be betrayed. Only power is reliable." "Is it?" Maya gestured to the command center around them, Your power didn't save you. Your weapons didn't protect you. In the end, all your strength meant nothing because you were fighting alone. Ketmara approached, moving with that careful grace that still amazed Maya. He spoke to Zeftak in the Vilthak language, his voice patient but firm. What did he say? Maya asked. He said that I spent so many years teaching them to kill that I forgot they could also choose to protect. Zeftak replied reluctantly. He said that you reminded them of something I tried to destroy, their capacity for kindness. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. In just a few days, she had learned enough of the Korthak language to hold simple conversations with Ketmara and his people. What she discovered had amazed her. The Korthaks were not just intelligent, they were philosophers, artists, and dreamers. Before their enslavement, they had been explorers who sought out new life forms not to conquer them, but to learn from them. Their ships were living beings because they believed that all life was sacred and should be nurtured rather than exploited. Your people aren't the first to make this mistake, Maya told Zeftak. Throughout history, the strong have always underestimated those they consider weak. But you missed something important about humans. Which is? We don't just make friends with our own species. We make friends with anyone willing to be our friend. Dogs, cats, horses, dolphins, we've been forming partnerships across species lines for thousands of years. It's what we do. Lisa looked up from her work, grinning. She's got a point. Maya once made friends with a wild bear that wandered into our research camp. Thing followed her around for 3 days before heading back to the forest. The bear was injured, Maya said, embarrassed. I just cleaned its wounds and shared my food. Exactly, Jake added. That's what you do. You see a creature in pain and you help it. Doesn't matter if it's human or alien or something in between. Ketmara made a sound that Maya had learned was laughter. He spoke in his own language, the musical tones filling the command center with warmth. He says that when you first spoke to him in the arena, it was the first time in years that anyone had addressed him as a person rather than a weapon. Maya translated for the others. He knew immediately that you were different from the Velthak. War Commander Zeftak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice held a note of something that might have been wonder. You truly believe that cooperation is stronger than conquest? I don't just believe it, Maya replied. I've seen it work. This ship is proof. Your most feared warriors were defeated not by superior weapons, but by people working together toward a common goal. And what is that goal now? Zeftak asked. You control a Velthak flagship and a crew of liberated Korthaks. What do you intend to do with this power? Maya looked around the command center at her unlikely crew. Jake was working with a young Korthak to plot a course home. Lisa had her head buried in a control panel, trying to understand the biological computer systems. Other Korthaks moved through the space with purpose, no longer the beaten prisoners they had been just days before. We're going to do what humans do best, she said finally. We're going to explore, learn, make new friends. And maybe, if we're lucky, we'll show the galaxy that there's a better way to handle first contact than with weapons and chains. Ketmara approached and gently touched Maya's shoulder with one clawed hand. He spoke in English, the words careful but clear. Home first, he said. Then stars. Together. Maya smiled, placing her hand over his. Together. The Aurora's dawn had been retrieved from the planet where they were first captured, and now both ships traveled together through the void. The research vessel flew alongside the massive Velthak flagship, an unlikely pair heading toward human space. As they traveled, Maya worked with the Korthaks to document their technology and culture. What she learned would revolutionize not just space travel, but humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. The Korthaks, in return, were eager to learn about Earth and its many species. You have creatures that choose to live with humans? One of them asked through Ketmara's translation. They are not forced? Not forced at all, Maya replied. They live with us because they want to, because we take care of each other. The concept seemed to fascinate the Korthaks. They had never encountered a species that formed voluntary partnerships with other life forms. To them, Relationships had always been about dominance or submission, conqueror or conquered. Perhaps, Ketmara said thoughtfully, there is much for us to learn about this friendship your people practice. 3 weeks later, the two ships entered Earth's solar system. The sight of the blue and green planet hanging in space brought tears to Maya's eyes while the Korthax pressed against the viewing windows in wonder. It's beautiful, Ketmara said, his English improving daily. Like the songs my people used to sing about worlds where all life was free. It will be again, Maya promised. All worlds will be free, once we show them how. As news of their arrival spread through human space, Maya realized that everything was about to change. Humanity had always wondered if they would find friends among the stars. Now they knew the answer was yes, but they would have to help those friends find freedom first. The story that began with a human scientist facing a deadly predator in an alien arena had become something much larger. It was the beginning of a new age, where the bonds between thinking beings mattered more than the strength of their weapons. And in the deep reaches of space, other species were beginning to take notice of this strange new alliance, wondering what it might mean for the future of the galaxy. The predator had not chosen to guard the human out of programming or instinct. It had made a choice based on recognition, the recognition that some bonds transcend species, and that the strongest force in the universe is not the will to dominate, but the desire to protect those we care about. Maya Collins had come to the stars as a scientist seeking knowledge. She was returning as something far more important, a bridge between worlds, and proof that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their capacity to turn enemies into friends.